All right, so check this out. So I'm 2 days behind on these two videos, so I'm gonna do a double video where Cjax explains The Rock and the Triple H beef behind closed doors. I won't say beef, but just a little drama that's going on with the bookings and the storytelling. And Cjax going to break down all that in these two videos. So let's go ahead and start with the first one.
Y'all, The Rock may have just spoiled WWE's plans for 2025 the rest of the year, okay? Today, he was on the Pat McAfee show, and he was talking about all kinds of different stuff, you understand? He was basically revealing multiple things about WrestleMania 41 on both nights, night one and what happened on night two, with Cena main eventing and winning, and then with Roman getting turned on by Paul Heyman, and something very special as well about that night one match, but we'll talk about that in a second. And he also brought up the fact of why he wasn't there at WrestleMania night two like everyone was expecting him to be there. You're going to want to hear the reason for that because I think it's absolutely ridiculous, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Also, he said that he talked about a potential very big name in the company selling their soul to the final boss for a storyline coming up potentially this year or maybe for Mania 42. He teased a Cody Rhodes heel turn, and he also revealed why Cena went heel in the first place and the fact that it was pretty much done on the fly to revive a dead Mania season, like I've said numerous times. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and break it down and just discuss all the different elements that were discussed in this interview, at least the main elements that people care about, okay? Number one, let's get right into it. We have to talk about WrestleMania 41, the night two main event, and Cena winning the belt, and The Rock not showing up at all at this PLE. Now, Pat McAfee basically brought up the fact that most fans, like every fan in the building and also watching at home, were pretty much expecting him to come out with Travis or after Travis to help Cena win. And this is basically what The Rock says about all of that, okay? The Rock said that he wanted it to be a moment specifically for John Cena and Cody Rhodes for night two. He didn't want to take shine away from any of them, he says. So he basically talked to Triple H, he talked to Nick Khan, he talked to Cena, and talked to Cody behind the scenes, and basically said, I'm going to bow back and take a seat back while you guys go out there and crush it and kill it. And I don't want there to be any other, The Rock also brought up this too. This is where it gets funny. The Rock said he had other obligations as well, so he didn't want to impede on any of those by showing up at Mania. So basically, he said a mixture of things. It boils down to the fact that he probably couldn't be there because of his other obligations, and the fact that, he probably did want it to be a moment for Cody and Cena maybe as well. So he had to take a step back. And then he also brings up this, though. He did say that if he was in control of creative of how they actually got to the point of Cena winning his 17th championship, he said that he would have done it differently than what Triple H and what the bookers and all the the people, he said a lot of people in the creative room writing and doing it all. He said he would have done the ending to WrestleMania 41 in a completely different way, or at least in a different way in a sense of like how they got to Cena actually winning that match with the belt and the hitting and all that stuff, and Travis got involved. He said he would have booked it differently. And that honestly begs the question, what exactly does that mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is the final boss? How would that have played out if The Rock was the one in control of the storyline? Who knows? I think The Rock would have just had himself be one of the, the driving forces as to why Cena ended up getting that belt. But I guess because he didn't want to do that, he just decided he might as well not do anything at all. So I'm not sure what the original plans were for night two, but he said that if he wasn't a creative, it wouldn't have been the same. So there's that. And he also says that he purposely didn't show up as well. And this is the kicker here. He purposely didn't show up because in the Elimination Chamber season, which we'll talk about in a second, he wanted to lay the foundations for Cody to sell his soul, because eventually The Rock says he is going to revisit Cody Rhodes potentially having another face run as WWE champion, and he's also going to revisit the idea of Cody Rhodes becoming a full-blown heel and having a heel run, okay? So The Rock said that is a potential thing that will be revisited. So at some point, expect to see Cody Rhodes and The Rock, either Cody as champion again or maybe Cody just as a face, and him and The Rock are going to revisit this storyline of, him selling his soul and selling out and being a bad guy. And that's why The Rock, I guess that's part of the reason why Cena brought up on SmackDown, at some point, Cody, you're going to have to make the choice. Do you want to be a bad guy and win, or do you want to be a good guy and lose? And that's why when Cody was faced with the chance to hit Cena with the belt, he didn't do it, and therefore he lost. So I see now kind of the vision. This is all excuses, though. Let's be honest here. The Mania 41 main event was absolute garbage in ring. It's good that Cena won, but like The Rock is holding on to this story thread of selling your soul, when in reality, what should have happened is Cody should have hit Cena in the head. I mean, Cena embarrassed him at the Chamber and beat him up in front of everybody, and we have to now pretend like that's just okay so that Cody doesn't, Cody chooses not to hit Cena with the belt, and then he loses because of it. It's kind of stupid when you think about it like that, but, it is what it is. But apparently, we might be getting a Cody heel run and a potential another run of Cody as face, as WWE champion, and I have to say, I don't ever want to see Cody Rhodes as WWE champion ever again after that garbage title reign that we just endured that went nowhere and had 10 title defenses in 1 year. I don't want to ever endure that again. So hopefully that's not what happens. I hope that Cody just full-blown goes heel and we'll deal with it from there. With that being said, I respect you, I love you, I need you, and I can't stop thinking about Punk. Anyways, on to the next point. He basically then revealed that Triple H and Nick Khan and the heads of TKO and WWE saw that the Elimination Chamber tickets were not selling well, okay, and that in the Mania season, there wasn't that much hype and intrigue. Surprise, surprise. I've been saying this, not surprised at this at all. But he basically said that they needed a reason for fans to tune into this Mania season, and they needed a reason for fans to tune in heavily to the Elimination Chamber, which is the next big step to WrestleMania 41. And because of that, The Rock had to think of something on the fly, as he's literally describing it. He said he had to think of something, and he came up with the idea of The Rock, the final boss character, wanting people's souls. He doesn't want money, he doesn't want belts, he doesn't want any of that stuff. So he came up with the idea on the fly, literally a week before that SmackDown he showed up, or a few days before it, to have Cody come out there and them discuss Cody potentially selling his soul as WWE champion. And that's how we eventually got to the point where Triple H actually came up with the idea for John Cena to be the one to turn heel rather than Cody, because Cody didn't want to turn heel behind the scenes. That's just what it is. And Triple H didn't want it either. So they actually ended up going with the direction of John Cena doing the swerve and turning heel at the Elimination Chamber, which is a move that was admittedly, now we can fully admit that it was done for desperation, and it was done for shock factor to revive a Mania season and to get fans to actually tune in, because Mania season was dead and it continued to die out even more afterwards. So there's the facts in front of your face. It's very interesting to me how every single thing behind the scenes for this Mania season, it feels like the talent is slowly like showing us the simple fact that like Mania season not only was dead, but there was no true direction to really bring that gravitas and that emotional epicness to the Mania season. And that's what all these interviews are aligning with. The creative saying it, Triple H is saying it, Cody's saying it. I mean, The Rock is agreeing with it. That's why they all decided to do this storyline. Same with Cena choosing to go heel as well, because Cena could have turned it down, but he chose to do it, and that's something important that we have to realize. So, it is what it is. It's really unfortunate to see how much desperation was involved and how much pressure was involved and how much shock factor was involved in this Mania build, man. It's kind of disappointing, but, it turned out in a bad product. We got one of the worst WrestleManias of all time, so it is what it is. And then, arguably the most important thing from this interview. In this interview, The Rock discusses Night 1, and the Night 1 main event specifically with Roman, Rollins, and Punk. And he basically brings up the fact that Roman got, Pat McAfee asked him, he's like, how do you feel about your cousin Roman Reigns, getting snaked by Paul Heyman? And The Rock, as a member of the TKO board, basically said that, Roman Reigns is part-time, yes, and he says that, part of the fans, like, complaining that he's part-time and stuff like that. He said that behind the scenes, it actually fuels Roman Reigns to put on these epic and, crazy performances at these big-time PLEs. And he says that even though Roman is part-time, he still is carrying the company. So those are words from TKO and WWE themselves, not from me. So, I am a Roman Glazer, but I mean, we are seeing the truth and people are saying it themselves, but that's not the point. Then he brings up the fact that Seth Rollins is the Superman of WWE, just like he was at Mania 40. The Rock brings up what he did last year, you know what I'm saying, in the tag team feud with Rollins and Cody with, Rock versus Rock and Roman for the Mania 40 build and all that stuff, and he calls him that. And then a little bit further on in the interview, The Rock refers to a conversation he had with a guy in the build-up to WrestleMania 41 and, around the time of the actual weekend we just had. And he basically says that, the person who he would consider his buddy, who he refers to as the Superman of WWE, so he doesn't call Rollins by name, but he previously mentioned that Rollins is the Superman of WWE. That's what they call him. And then he reveals that that person, WWE Superman, texted him and said that they're open to selling their soul to the final boss, which reveals that Seth Rollins could likely end up doing a storyline either by Mania 42 or for some point at this year, in which Seth Rollins could eventually sell out his soul to The Rock and then become the next WWE champion after Cena's done, or maybe he takes the belt from Cena and The Rock turns on Cena, or maybe something happens with Cody, whatever, in order for Seth Rollins to become the next WWE champion and become The Rock's champion, okay? And by the end of this year, or by Mania 42, you could have Seth Rollins being in a big faction with Braun Breaker, Paul Heyman, and The Rock, you know what I'm saying, as the WWE champion of the company and as that official #1 guy with Paul Heyman by his side. So that is a storyline that was teased inside of this interview, and it was brought up about behind the scenes what's potentially being said and what they're working towards. So all in all, there are some really cool ideas that are discussed with this. I mean, there could be some interesting and awesome plot lines and story threads that they could build for the rest of this year, but it all just depends on whether The Rock is going to show up or not, what he wants to contribute, how often he can can show up and when the next time is that he will be there and what he will be doing. So it's all going to hopefully connect, allegedly. We all know that that's not going to happen. Like, let's be honest with ourselves. 90% of the stuff that we just discussed, the potential ideas, out of that, like 90%, let's say 100% of those ideas, maybe 40% of them will actually take place. The only one that will legitimately possible is probably the fact that Cody will eventually turn heel and the fact that Rollins could eventually become WWE champion. That's really it. Everything else is already proven facts about this Mania build that we already knew. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. But these are interesting ideas. I am kind of more excited now to see how things unfold the rest of this year, because with this faction and The Rock teasing, he's been talking to Seth Rollins, he's been talking to Cena, he's been talking to Cody. It builds like a whole umbrella where The Rock has his palm on everything, which fits the final boss character. You know, you have control over everything. You are the head guy in charge. You know what I mean? You have your hand, you have your control over everything that takes place inside of the company. So I think it could be very interesting and awesome to explore, but it all depends on if The Rock is going to show up and give us something great to remember and something epic like he did for the Mania 40 build. Now, with that being said, that's going to wrap it up for this video. Let me know your thoughts on what The Rock is doing behind the scenes, what The Rock is cooking, and if you smell what Cjax is cooking, enjoy the ride that I'm taking you on. And I thank you guys for watching. Have a phenomenal day. Peace out and one love.
All right, let's get to the second video where basically he talks about the WWE backstage drama. And it's about Bayley and Nia Jax and everything else. Still talk about The Rock and Triple H, but you'll be shocked at what we're hearing, what's going on backstage. So, let's get to the video.
All right, man. We got another double upload day because there's a bunch of news, alleged backstage drama. You know, The Rock allegedly trying to take Triple H's job. You know what I'm saying? All that stuff. I want to confirm though, okay? Most of the stuff I'm going to talk about in this video is actually factual. You can go either watch the podcast or I'm going to show images of what I'm talking about on the screen. So I'll have actual evidence for most of the stuff I'm talking about. And then obviously some of this is rumors and speculation. It's not clickbait. Most of this stuff is going to be accurate and you can look up the videos and the evidence yourselves. And if you can't, I'll just link it. You can just DM me on Instagram or email me, whatever. I'll send you the links to whatever you need. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk about what's happening. Basically, what's happening is that there's a bunch of egos in the way, a lot of creative clashing backstage, apparently, between The Rock and between Triple H and between WWE Creative. You have also the fact that Bayley now is coming out and talking about the fact that, you know, what happened recently with WrestleMania. She feels like her kindness is kind of being taken advantage of in a sense, which isn't a feeling. It's what's actually happening. That's why Becky Lynch basically came back and knocked her out of Mania. And Dr. Libations, Cody Rhodes, there were some things said about him by a backstage talent, which we'll talk about, a little bit later in this video, okay? I'm sticking up for my boy Cody Rhodes, so you know what I'm saying, y'all? He ain't my boy, but the stuff that was said about Cody Rhodes, I don't agree with, and you know what? We're going to talk about that later in the video as well. So yes, you'll be seeing me defending Dr. Libations for the first time in a very long time. And also, most of the creative clashing and the rumors and stuff I've said already are probably true simply because of the fact that when you have creative clashing and egos clashing backstage, usually the product suffers as a result of it. We see this in big movie industries. We see this now in wrestling. If you have creative clashes at the top, the people who are running the company and running the organization, you ultimately are going to get a bad product. Hence why the fans are super upset with Mania 41 being very lackluster and just straight up bad, and the Mania season and build leading up to it being atrocious. Now, obviously, we have to talk about The Rock. The Rock basically seems to slowly but surely have some sort of, tension, I would say, with Triple H backstage is the nicest way to put it, with Triple H being the head of creative. As we all know, The Rock was not on WrestleMania Night 2, as we all expected him to come out there and help Cena beat Cody and win the championship. And The Rock obviously could have been there if he really wanted to be there. If he could show up last week like 8 or 9 times leading into Mania 40 as one of the busiest celebrities on the planet, there's no reason why he couldn't show up more than 1 time in this entire Mania build. It's ridiculous, and we know he could have been there because he randomly, after the insane backlash that Mania 41 got, The Rock showed up on Pat McAfee's show today to do some damage control after the disaster that happened this weekend. And because of this, The Rock showed up on this, which lets you know, and he was in his house too on a Zoom call, so that lets you know that he probably could have shown up to Mania if he really wanted to, but it just didn't happen. But the fact is that at Triple H's Hall of Fame speech and at WrestleMania, any of this stuff over the weekend, Triple H has not mentioned The Rock at all, and The Rock has barely been brought up during this Mania build. And also, we have to bring up the fact that The Rock hasn't been mentioned really by anybody except for maybe Cena or Cody 1 time since that Chamber heel turn for Cena. So that's something to keep in mind as I go into this next part. The WrestleMania season ticket sales, this is all being said by The Rock on Pat McAfee McAfee show, so you can go watch the footage yourself. The WrestleMania ticket sales in terms of the chamber sales and the week-to-week shows and stuff like that were getting low. And this is obviously evident. We saw the proof a week ago, 7 days before Mania. They were struggling to sell tickets in a 60,000 person stadium. They were struggling to get 50K. And then obviously they lied about it at Mania, saying there were 63,000, even though that's not even possible, right? They lied about the sellout numbers both nights. But anyways, so that's factual. And they needed something big, and they wanted something to reignite Elimination Chamber and also bring hype and, inject some energy into this Mania season. So they hit up The Rock, WWE, Triple H, TKO, the creative. They got with The Rock, and they wanted The Rock to come up with something big. And his idea was for Cody to turn heel and sell his soul to The Rock. That's why we got that segment on SmackDown. But Triple H and Cody Rhodes, it's unclear which one of them, or if it was both of them, didn't want Cody as the face of the company, the current face of the company as a face, to turn heel. And I guess that's understandable, right? So John Cena, who originally probably wasn't planned to turn heel, and we know this because you can see when he was doing his tour in Europe, he had multiple different wristband and armband and color attires for each specific week. So this was planned out in advance for him to have these multiple different colors for these different showings across the world, because he was probably going to be a good guy and help sell multiple amounts of merch to different places in different markets. So that's that. But Cena ended up being the one that turned heel, as we all saw it. And John Cena ended up winning the 17th championship, but The Rock said today on the show that if Cena won the 17th championship and The Rock was in charge, The Rock would have booked it different than what Triple H and the creative did, which is kind of a shot at the booking, considering how bad the booking was for night 2 and how what Triple H wanted to happen sucked. So I guess The Rock can now say, if I was doing it, it would have been different and it could have been better. But the point is, The Rock not showing up at night 2 when he probably could have lets you know that there could be a potential scenario where the final boss, my boy The Rock, sabotaged the whole Mania season potentially since the Chamber era, when he had Cody do the sell the soul thing and Cena turned heel, in order to maybe make Triple H look worse or look bad by not continuing on a storyline that The Rock started himself. It's just a possibility. I'm throwing it out there. It could be possible. And how could The Rock not be there for Mania, but then one day later, or like 30 hours later, he's showing up for a 40-minute segment on the Pat McAfee show? You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't add up. If The Rock knew that he was going to lay down a story and wasn't going to finish it, why would he do it in the first place? It was either something that TKO wanted him to do to sell tickets and, provide intrigue for the shows and stuff like that, or the simple truth is that, The Rock had an idea, and maybe he had other obligations, which he mentioned in the show. Maybe that was it. Or him and Triple H couldn't get along on creative and they disagreed on what to do. So The Rock figured, you know what? I'm going to do a power play and not show up, and you're going to figure out how to make this great without me, which Triple H ultimately failed miserably at WrestleMania 41. So something is wrong. I don't know what's going on, but everything here looks pretty fishy. So who knows what's happening with this, but that's the situation with The Rock and Triple H and an alleged power struggle and creative struggle that's happening backstage, and issues with that. Also, The Rock did reveal that he has been texting Seth Rollins behind the scenes, and Seth Rollins is open to doing a sell the soul to The Rock storyline for a WWE title or things of that nature, and because of that, right, it's led to heavy speculation, and The Rock said himself he's going to dive into that story with Seth Rollins. So we probably might get Seth as WWE champion within the next year, or world champ, as selling his soul out to The Rock. So just stay tuned for that. That's interesting. Next, we have to talk about Dr. Libations. I quickly want to say Cody Rhodes obviously left AEW because he started to get booed in a company and promotion that he started, you understand? And because of that, Cody getting booed, it made him leave the company, and he was upset and all that stuff, so he came back to WWE. And now that he is getting booed, at least he was recently in this Cena feud, I don't think it will continue. I hope it doesn't for his sake, you know what I'm saying? If it continues, I do believe that Cody Rhodes could potentially either turn heel or he may leave the company again. I think the better option is for him to turn heel. I think that's what he likely will do, because you can't go from here back to AEW. That would just look horrible for the guy. So I think he will turn heel soon. And The Rock talked about today in his interview the fact that Cody Rhodes has been, him turning heel and selling out to The Rock is something that will be revisited at some point. The Rock said it himself. You can look at his interview. Now, we have to talk about the roast of WrestleMania, which wasn't aired. It wasn't televised. So we only have fan accounts of what happened at the show. But multiple accounts have concurred that Nia Jax went off the rails during this, and this might be part of the reason we haven't seen her, is because she's been, fiddling around and doing some negative stuff backstage. So she basically says, I have the screenshot here of the fan account. She basically was talking about the fact, I think she said Charlotte has more faces than WrestleManias because of her Botox surgery, which is just very rude to Charlotte. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of crazy. And then she also basically said that Cody Rhodes' kindness and genuineness is a bit fake, and that Cody's kind of a fake good guy. And on top of that, she even went on to discuss things about Becky Lynch and how some of her tweets when she was in the Man Run back in like 6 years ago or whatnot, some of those tweets were written by other people besides herself to make her look better in her The Man Run as one of the top people in the company. Nia Jax is just throwing blows at basically everybody, but quite frankly, I think this is absolutely insane. There's no way, right? I don't know Cody Rhodes personally. You know what I'm saying? I bashed his title reign because it did suck, and he is a mid-carder pretending to be a main eventer. However, Cody Rhodes being disingenuous and, you know, being a fake good guy. I mean, come on, man. Like, let's be honest with ourselves. I will say there were allegations of this when he was leaving AEW and got booed out of there as well. So I don't know what's happening with that. You know what I mean? That's none of my business. I don't know what's going on with him or Tony Khan or whatever. But this allegation coming from Nia Jax, who did also bring up Becky Lynch kind of politicking a little bit. And now you look at what's happening with Bayley, and Bayley did get politicked out at Mania by Becky Lynch. There could be some validity to these statements. There's a little bit of truth in every lie. You know what I'm saying? At least that's what the old heads say, you know, the unks out there, they be saying. I've heard multiple older people say that. So, you know, it is what it is. You never know. But the situation with Cody apparently being quote unquote disingenuous and basically a fake good guy is a very weird allegation that also lines up with what Nia was saying about Becky Lynch. And Becky Lynch is doing what Nia was saying. So maybe Cody could be a fake good guy, but I doubt it. I do think that Dr. Libations is a great guy, a good family man, and he seems to be a pretty solid dude in front of the scene, in front of the camera and behind the camera. So, you know, I don't know about the validity to this, but that's just something that Nia Jax said, so I had to cover it.
Now, I had to stop right there. I wanted to speak about the Nia Jax thing. So, look, I'm hoping that Nia Jax knows that everything she's saying will come back and to get her, you know, and I think she knows that, and that's why she probably hasn't been booked and haven't been seen, because it's crazy to me that we couldn't get Nia Jax versus Trish Stratus at WrestleMania, you know, when that should have been the match. Candice should have been by her side. The fact that Candice lost her speed title against Soroka when Soroka got the North American title, I mean, the fact she got 2 titles, man, damn. But Lyra couldn't even keep it till Backlash? Come on, man. You see what happens when the booking just go wrong. But like I said, I mean, what should have happened at WrestleMania, it should have been a triple threat match for the IC belt, and it should have been the Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross against Liv and Raquel. That's what it should have been. But it didn't happen now, did it? So I'm still happy for Lyra. I'm still happy for Becky. Well, more for Lyra than Becky. I'm not really happy for Becky just because now she came back just looking like now she's getting prepared for Hulk Hogan. And not only that, she's now got to turn this heel side of her. And I'm just wondering, will they have her team up with Lyra, you know, just to get Lyra to turn heel? Because if the crowd don't rock with her no more, then you might as well have her turn heel so that way they both can team up. And maybe they could team up with Finn and possibly JD to go against Dom and his crew. You know what I'm saying? So I would like to see that Saturday night's main event. You know, maybe Becky and Lyra can work together to, you know, and with Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker, you know, start their Authority 2.0. You feel me? I think that would be cool. You know, like Becky doesn't have to, but you know, leave Lyra in the dust. Like what she could do is just elevate her. You know, like you be the mentor, she be the mentee. You take her title away from her to let her know that you're going soft and you need to go hard like me. And until you do that, you can't get this title back. You get what I'm saying? So that should be the storyline right there. You know, I'm only doing this for your own good. Now you got a choice. You can either join me, listen and follow, or you could be left in the shadow with nowhere to go. That could be the storyline right there for Lyra and Becky, you know. And then they can join with Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker. You know, they ain't got to be outside in the ring with each other, but they can talk backstage, just like they do with the Judgment Day, right? So hopefully that will be the storyline. But as for Nia Jax, hopefully we get to see her tonight at SmackDown, because Tiffany needs some challengers. And the only challenge I could think of is Alexa Bliss, because everybody else ain't getting it unless it's going to be Jade Cargill. I would love to see Tiffany versus Jade Cargill, but I could also see Tiffany Stratton versus Alexa Bliss and Liv Morgan cost her the match at Backlash. I could see that. So hopefully we can see that, but until then, we just got to let this story unfold. But Yeah, so I'm still happy for Lyra. I'm glad she got her first win at WrestleMania. I'm glad she became double champion. And even if she didn't keep it for long, the good thing is she won it. And I'm just glad she had her first win. So I'll give her that. But other than that, man, we know what it should have happened at WrestleMania. And Liv and Raquel retaining their titles. Who cares about that? You know, only y'all care. But I care about these two matches that should have happened. And that's the triple threat match for the IC belt and the tag team match against the Judgment Day versus the Wyatts. It should have happened, but it didn't. So there you go. But let's get back to the topic because I want him to speak about Bayley. So let's get back to the video.
Then we also have to talk about, which is, I think this is one of the last stories, to discuss in this video. Bayley was on Chris Van Vliet. Shout out Chris Van Vliet. You know what I'm saying? That dude's a goated podcaster. I love listening to Chris Van Vliet. But anyways, Bayley basically went on that podcast, okay? And she was basically being questioned about, this is right before Mania. This is at Mania week last week. You know what I'm saying? And she was basically saying, in a sense, that her kindness and her lack of ego to not, quote unquote, literally said it herself, push down the door and demand, better, or demand, hey, I'm Bayley. I deserve to do this. Why would I do that? I want to take control. I want to do I want to do it how I want to do it. These are words from her. She says that that lack of ego and stuff has gotten her to be taken advantage of in a certain sense. When you look at what's happened with this WrestleMania run, Becky Lynch, gets to come in, return after however long she's been off the last year or so, and just take someone else's WrestleMania spot because she's Becky Lynch. That's straight politicking, and it takes away Bayley's spot that had been built up at least for a few weeks. Her story with Lyra versus Liv and Raquel for Mania, the original match. It's kind of very shady and it's very shaky, and I do feel bad for Bayley because apparently, I don't think this is apparent. I think we all know this. Charlotte and Becky Lynch be politicking. You know what I'm saying? They be politicking, bro. That's why Naomi and Sasha Banks walked out on WWE a couple years ago, because of how crazy the politicking is from Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch. Like, they basically got to just do whatever they wanted and take other people's spots at their expense, which is why I do have respect for Charlotte. I respect you. I love you. I need you. I have respect for Charlotte, for doing the job at Mania and, not only out wrestling Tiffany Stratton, who's in her 20s, supposed to be in her prime, but also Charlotte was able to, go down and take the loss to Tiffany Stratton to put Tiffany over. So I thought that was great. That was pretty great of her to do. Pretty selfless, I would say. But the fact is that Bayley saying these things days after, her getting taken off the Mania card, and she was referencing how, last year, how she won the Rumble, and, she had the Mania, she had the Mania moment with Io and won the belt, and then there was nothing next for her. Like, they gave her nothing really to work with, and then had her lose the belt to Cjax. And you look at that, and she literally mentioned in the interview today, she's like, you know what? By the time this interview comes out, there's going to be some other stuff as well. Obviously alluding to the fact that Becky came in and took her spot probably like a day or two after that interview was recorded. So it's very interesting. There is so much drama and so much craziness taking place right now. I wanted to discuss this and cover this because this is some pretty serious stuff. When you start dealing with power dynamics and egos and power struggles and, creative issues, all of this is bad for the fans because at the end of the day, we get a bad product because of all the miscommunications and the disconnections at the start of the company, at the heads of the company. If they're not coinciding and they're not working well together, then we're not going to get a product that flows smoothly and that is actually entertaining and good. Hence why this Mania season has been so awful. Okay, so that's the situation with that. But with that being said, I think that's pretty much all the news that needs to be covered. We have rumors of The Rock and his power struggle with Triple H, Cody Rhodes allegedly being disingenuous, which my boy Dr. Libations ain't disingenuous. Let's be real here, y'all. And then obviously the politicking from Bayley and or the politicking from Becky Lynch and what Cjax said. Cjax is probably going to get fired soon, of course. And then we have the stuff with Bayley as well. Her discontent with the fact that she's kind of being taken advantage of and sidelined when she doesn't really know what else she needs to prove in order to be treated like a Charlotte or a Becky Lynch. So it's a very interesting deal. A lot of this is backed up by evidence and statistics and the fact that the product sucks over the last few months, you know what I'm saying? So it's all kind of there. You can kind of read through the tea leaves and figure it out yourself. But at the end of the day, we don't have 100% confirmation on every little thing mentioned in this video, so it's good to take it with a grain of salt, but at the end of the day, you have to decide at some point whether you're going to believe in something or not believe in it. So I don't know what I believe. I'm just here to report the information because the facts are what the facts are, and whether you love it, you hate it, you like it, you don't like it, you have to shut your mouth and enjoy the ride that Cjax is taking you on. with that being said, I thank you guys so much for watching. I thank you guys so much for your support. I appreciate you. I thank you. I'm proud of you. I respect you. And because of that, I am here able to make these videos, you know what I'm saying, for you guys. So thank you guys so much. Have a phenomenal day. Peace out. And one love.
Whatever, man. I'm still happy for Lyra and Becky, even though it was. I listen. Everyone said Becky Lynch was going to pull up and replace her, so hell, why not? Hey, she did her a favor. I mean, the fact that Lyra got her first win at WrestleMania, that's great. And she came out as double champion, had her first win. Woo-hoo! That's gold, baby. So for everybody that's hating on Lyra, you can eat a dick. Every last one of you. Hey, man, shout out to Lyra Valkyria, man. Now, I'm going to be real with you, man. I think she's going to turn heel. And the reason why is because after Backlash and Becky beat her for the title, most likely she's going to turn heel. And the reason why she's going to turn heel is because, you know, I think those two are going to work together. I think like what's going to happen is that Becky is going to teach Lyra a lesson about discipline. And, you know, taking kindness for weakness. I mean, you see what's going on with Bayley. You want to be like her. That's what Becky's probably going to let her know. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, can't be kind for too long. At some point, you're going to have to switch. And I think she's probably going to take John Cena's advice to where Becky Lynch is probably going to pass it on and say, hey, do you want to be a bad guy and win? Or you want to be a good guy and lose? And I'm like, well, I mean, I did win at WrestleMania. It's like, well, you won because of Becky. Okay, we know because you know Liv Morgan can't beat Becky clean. That's just for a fact. No matter what y'all say, Liv Morgan cannot beat Becky Lynch clean. Period. Okay? She cannot beat Becky Lynch clean. All right? Now, if they get a match at SummerSlam, good. And then hopefully Liv Morgan can beat her. But you got to do it clean without Raquel's help. Okay? That's for a fact. Don't come around here talking about I retired Becky when she only been gone for 10 months. Shut up. All right? Lyra's double champion. Just like you was at Crown Jewel. So be happy for her. We'll be happy for both of you for what you accomplished in the past. So let's leave that alone, all right? But y'all get in the comment box and let me know. What you guys think, man? What do you think about this drama backstage, man? You think it's intense? Or do you think it's nothing? I don't know. Y'all let me know, all right? And and also tonight at Friday Night SmackDown, listen, there was a report saying that Alexa Bliss is going to pull up. Do you guys think that she's going to, or do you think it's just a rumor? I don't know. We got till 8. Y'all let me know. All right? Get in the comment box. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, share if you're new. And I'll see you on the next video, all right? I'm out.